Okay, hi friends. Let's move to our fourth video, stress and coping, which some of you are like, I am stressed. I feel you. I'm stressed right now. I'm making this video. Let's talk about what it's doing to our body. Okay, we've got some learning targets that we're going to be looking at here. So stress, what is it? It's a psychological state that causes physical illness, right? Stress is any circumstance that may be real or perceived and threatens your well-being. Okay, so if you're feeling severe stress, a lot of times it impairs our ability to cope with it. But as you notice here, it's a psychological state and it's a circumstance. So when we think like, oh, that math test is stressing me out, that's actually going to be a stressor, and we'll look at what the difference is. But this is anything that's threatening your well-being. Okay, so what's the difference between stress and stressor? A stressor is a stressful stimulus, a condition demanding adaptation, a thing, right? So just like I said, maybe your math test is the stressor, maybe your parent is the stressor, whatever that might be. And then stress is the physical and mental change that occurs in response to a challenging or threatening situation. So basically the stressor is the thing, and stress is your reaction to that thing, if that makes sense. Okay, so we have four components to a stress response. First, you have, we'll just look at them individually, but you have a cognitive appraisal. So you identify the threat and determine how to cope with it. So that's some thinking involved, and that's different for everyone, right? Someone might look at the threat and cope with one way. Some might cope in another. Physiological response, this is the body's reaction. So what is your body actually doing? Are you kind of having shortness of breath? Are you perspiring? Is your heart increasing? Are you shaking? It's whatever you're physiologically doing. And then the person, the subjective feelings, they have the emotions involved. Some people have different emotions when stressed. And then there is usually a behavior and action that takes place because of stress. Maybe that's overeating, maybe that's not eating, maybe that's crying, maybe that's yelling, whatever it might be. Okay, so stress is not merely a stimulus or response. It is the process by which we appraise and cope with environmental threats and challenges. So we just talked about cognitive appraisal and how we cope with it. That's a huge component, and we can't leave it out when we're talking about stress. So you have your stressful event, say that's your math test. That can go one of two ways. That can either be a threat to you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail. It's not going to be good. I don't know how to do it. I don't want to take it. Like, you see it as a threat to your well-being. Or you might view your tough math test as a challenge. Like, I just got to get to work. I've got to do well at that test. I got to do well at that challenge. Time to get to work. So there's that cognitive appraisal of like how you're identifying the stressful event. Is it going to be a threat or is it going to be a challenge? And then if it's a threat, that usually leads to distraction, avoidance. Maybe you're so stressed about the math test, you don't even want to study. You just want to lock yourself in your room and watch Netflix to avoid the problem. But if it's a challenge, you might think, okay, I've got work to do. This is going to help me focus. This will increase arousal to help you focus. Kind of, if you think back to our optimal arousal part and motivation, stuff like that. Okay. So stress, when it's short-lived or when it's viewed as a challenge, stressors can have positive effects. Like, you study really hard for that math test, you get an A. However, prolonged or threatening stress can be harmful. So think about the threat, and if you're there for too long, how that can become harmful to you. So basically, the stressor, it's all in how we appraise it, and then also how long that is there, that stimulus or that stress is there. Types of stressors, we have four. We're going to break them down individually. We have catastrophic events, life changes, strains. So basically like any big life change, chronic stressors, and daily hassles. So let's break these down. We have our catastrophic events. These are things that are sudden, they're unexpected, they're potentially life-threatening experiences or traumas. So So I'm not going to like start listing out intense traumas, but think about intense traumas. Those are catastrophic events. This could be like the unexpected, person in your family dying. It could be beyond you as well, like potentially life-threatening experiences, COVID. Okay. So this could be like natural disasters, worldwide pandemic, but this could also be within you as well, like some sort of really intense trauma, abuse, anything that's potentially life-threatening, sudden, unexpected. Life changes or strains. This could just be a circumstance that creates demand to which people must adjust. So maybe your parents get a divorce and you now have to navigate that, or you break up with your significant other that you've been dating for a long time and that causes a life change. Or maybe it's just moving from high school to college. That's a life change. That could be a strain, anything like that. So, I'll have you list some more examples when we meet together. But chronic stressors, so these are things that continue over a long period of time. Like maybe you have one class that's a chronic stressor for you, and you're in that class all year long, so 9 months. And so that's constantly causing you stress over a long period of time. And then you just have like daily hassles. So this could be some irritation, some pressure, some annoyances that might not be significant like alone, but they add up. So maybe you get to your first period and you didn't get a good grade on the test. And then you go to your second period and then you've got to do like an extra assignment. And then you go to your third period and it's lunch and you forgot your lunch. And then it's fourth period, you have to talk to the teacher. Like those individually aren't super intense, but put them all together in one day, you're probably going to go home and be like, I had a stressful day. That day wasn't fun. Okay, so just think about any little annoyances, irritations that you face over the day that might add up. Okay, so the stress response system. So one of the first slides was about the body's reaction. So basically, Cannon proposed that the stress response, which is fast, was a fight or flight response, which we've talked about that. Basically, by the outpour of neurotransmitters from the inner adrenal glands, increasing heart, respiration, mobilizing sugar and fat, and dulling pain. Okay, so let's think about that for a second. I don't think I have to list what your body does when stressed. I think you probably know that, but think about it. Your heart rate might increase. Your respiration increases. You're starting to take shallow breaths as opposed to long, deep breaths. Mobilizing sugar and fat. So this is where your body actually like holds on to fat, and more cortisol is produced in the body. And so that one of chronic stress is like leads to weight gain. So if you're like, I wonder maybe why my body is not doing what it's supposed to do. Maybe you're super stressed. And dulling certain pains. Okay, so you've got your different systems of the body working together. You've got your neurotransmitters, you've got your endocrine system, but we can see some of those physiological responses. Okay, the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, again, endocrine system, so think back to that, also respond to stress by triggering an outpour of cortisol. So that's what I just talked about. But this is just the beginning if the stress is longer lasting. Okay, so far we've got our nervous system with our fight or flight. We've got some neurotransmitters. We've got cortisol being released. We've got the endocrine system working. There's a lot that's happening when you're stressed. And then one guy came up with the general adaptation syndrome, GAS for short, if that helps you remember it. But basically, a stressed individual is going to go through 3 different phases: alarm, resistance, and then exhaustion. So let's break those down. Okay, stage 1 is the alarm reaction. So this is when the hypothalamus sets fight or flight response into action, releasing neurotransmitters and hormones to deal with the stressful situation. So what we just talked about. If the stressor persists over a long period of time, this initial response can become distress as it depletes the body's energy and defense resources. So basically, like, this is your alarmed reaction. And then if you are there for a long period of time, then you can start to deplete the body's energy and resources. So this can cause high blood pressure, deterioration of the immune system, fatty deposits in the blood vessels, ulcers, all of those things. So as you can notice, all the things that I listed are not positive for your body. So hopefully that we gather from this video, stress is not a state that we want to stay in constantly, because we're going to have actual physiological health problems. Okay, stage 2, resistance. So if that stressor persists, talking is hard, but not so long to where it overwhelms the organism during stage 1, the individual begins to rebound during stage 2. So basically, outwardly, the body appears to be gaining an advantage, resisting the stressor. Inwardly, the body is trying to restore homeostasis, yet the body is still working to cope with the stress. So basically, if you're alarmed in stage 1, and then you get to stage 2, and the stressor is still there, but it's not overwhelming you, then you're going to start to get back to normal in stage 2. However, if you don't, that's going to lead you to stage 3, which is exhaustion. But one thing I do need to mention real quick is also with resistance, this only applies to the original stressor. Okay, so let's go back. Let's say you're alarmed by your math test. Okay, and then you get into stage 2 of resistance, and then there's another stressor introduced. Like now your boyfriend just also broke up with you. You're not going to probably go back to homeostasis as fast because we just introduced another stressor, right? So if another stressor is introduced, defenses could be so depleted that they're unable to respond to a second stressor. So think about that. Like you've been stressed on one thing or one or two things, and then all of a sudden another stressor comes in and you're like, I can't do it. I can't handle it. That's what we're talking about here in resistance, okay? If the stressor was the math test and that's the only stressor, then you're probably going to move to homeostasis a lot faster as opposed to if there's other stressors. Okay, stage 3 is exhaustion. So if resistance fails to relieve the stress, so if you're not relieving it in stage 2, the symptoms of alarm reappear. So some of those symptoms in stage 1, they're going to reappear. This time, it's accompanied by even more of a powerful of your autonomic nervous system responses. And the autonomic nervous system already overcompensated and the body's already used so much energy that the stressor is not removed. Exhaustion will occur, okay? So this is when it gets really intense, really not good for your body. And this is where we can lead to heart attacks, clogged arteries, excessive colds and flu, because your body's, that immune system is not able to repair itself, frequent headaches, stuff like that, okay? And then obviously that can eventually lead to death. So again, I hope we see that stress does not have, especially when it's a threat, it's not positive for you. So I know a lot of us just sit in like chronic stress. We really want to start looking at that because I don't want you to like physically damage your body. Any stressor, and this is any like mental process, like worry, right? You might think like, oh, I just naturally worry. Or your mom might say like, oh, it's my job to worry. Well, that actually affects your health and your immune system. So basically, the human immune response is helpful in a short-term stressor, like it might help deal with that, but chronic stressors, that might cause it to start breaking down and turning on itself. So even though there's no physical enemy, the body still can be vulnerable to infection, to energy, because the human immune responses aren't working like they should because you're under chronic stress. Okay, stress can have a variety of health-related consequences. Stress makes healthy choices harder and unhealthy choices easier. So you're really, really stressed. It's going to be harder to like get up, go make yourself a salad, like go do all the things that you need to do versus just laying in bed, or, ordering fast food on DoorDash, so you don't have to leave your house, or just drinking a lot of caffeine, or smoking to help you relax, drinking. Okay, none of us should be drinking, but we see this in older people. Persistent release of stress hormones can cause long-term effects. So heart disease, immune suppression. So like you're not allowing your immune system to work as it should. Headaches, weight gain. There's really no good health consequences when it comes to stress. Now, people have two different personality types, type A and type B. You might know like what kind of person you are. But type A friends are going to feel a little bit more stressed than type B friends. So let's look at the difference. So type A is a term used for competitive, hard driving, impatient, verbally aggressive, and anger prone people that become stressed out quickly in most cases. You might be thinking, well, I become stressed out really quickly in most cases, but I'm not angry. You don't have to have all of the things, right? But just think about, are you someone who's really competitive? Do you tend to be impatient? Do you tend to get aggressive more quickly than someone else? Do you tend to lash out quicker? Do you tend to get stressed out quickly in most cases? Like something that might not stress your friend out really stresses you out. You might be a type A person, okay? Type B, these individuals are more easygoing, relaxed, people that seem to deal with stress easily and don't get too anxious or worked up. A lot of times these people might be like, it's all good, it's okay. They might be the friend that you need if you're really, really stressed out and you need someone to kind of calm you down. Think in your head, am I more type A or am I more type B? Strategies for basically getting rid of stress. Okay, reducing stress by changing events that causes stress or by changing how we react is called problem-focused coping. So basically, think about if your car keeps breaking down, that keeps causing you stress. So you're going to address the problem of your car breaking down and you're going to buy a new car, right? So you're identifying the events that cause you stress and you're changing those events. When we can't change the stressful situation, like maybe it's just not as easy as like go buying a new car, and respond by attending our own emotional needs, that is coping, that is emotion focused. So for example, you break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, which causes you stress. So you seek support from family and friends, right? So you can't change the situation. You're broken up, but you can attend to your own emotional needs by finding your community, your support system, taking care of those emotions. So those are just two ways, right? So think about any stressors in your life. Is it a problem that you can fix? Or is it maybe how you respond to it and how your emotions respond and like you can control those? So I hope this helped. I hope you weren't watching this and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm stressed. Oh my gosh, I'm killing myself. Now I'm more stressed. That's not the point, right? But I do need you to be aware of what stress does on your body because it's not a good thing, right? Especially since y'all are still like developing and some of you are even still growing. Like we really want to keep the stress to a minimum, which some of you probably just rolled your eyes at me, but we have to. So I hope you took your notes. I hope you watched the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you very soon for our next one.